Hey guys, we remade our most popular video because the original had terrible audio, and we had to make it more YouTube friendly. This is also in preparation for Serial Killer Dungeons and Lairs Part 2 featuring Disturban. We are really excited about this collab. Serial killers are known to quickly kill their victims and dispose of their bodies. But the true horror begins when they take their victims home. These are 3 of the most terrifying serial killer dungeons and lairs. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. The Toy Box Killer, David Parker Ray. The Toy Box was the name that serial killer David Parker Ray gave to his mobile home turned torture chamber where he allegedly killed up to 60 women. Ray spent an estimated $100,000 in order to create a dungeon filled with adult toys and torture devices, like whips, chains, saws, and surgical blades, so that he can drug, sexually torture, and kill his victims. Ray was born in 1939 in New Mexico and came from an abusive family. He was described as a subpar student who was unusually shy around girls, and he was bullied at school. It is estimated that he kidnapped women, mostly immigrants and prostitutes, for nearly 40 years. Ray was finally caught when his last victim, Cynthia Vigil, endured 3 days of torture and rape by him and his accomplice. In 1999, Ray and his girlfriend, Cindy Lee Hendy, solicited Cynthia Vigil for sex. Once they got her in the truck, they immediately handcuffed, then bound and gagged her. Upon their arrival at the toy box, they tied Cindy to a pole and began to play a 20-minute long video of Ray explaining what he planned to do to her. The following is the actual audio. If you want to skip it, go to the next timestamp.
Hello there, bitch. You probably think you're going to be raped, and you're fucking sure right about that. You're not going to remember a fucking thing about this little adventure. As far as I'm concerned, you're a pretty piece of meat. Be smart and be a survivor. Have a nice day.
For 3 horrifying days, Ray and Hendy electrocuted, beat, and assaulted Cindy while telling her that things would only get worse. On day 3, Ray went to work and left Hendy in charge of watching Cindy. When Hendy went into another room, Cindy found slack in her chains and managed to free herself with keys left on the table next to her. She found a phone, and when she tried to call the police, Hendy came up from behind her and hit her on the head with a lamp. A fight ensued, and Cindy managed to stab Hendy in the neck with an ice pick. She was covered in blood and was naked with the exception of a slave collar and chains as she ran down the road trying to find someone to help her. At least 2 cars passed by as she screamed for help. She found a trailer park and saw a motorhome with the lights on and opened the door. She ran inside and slammed the door behind her, much to the surprise of the homeowner. After Ray and Hendy were arrested, police investigated the trailer, and what they found was the stuff of nightmares. The trailer was fitted with a gynecological examination table and a homemade device that generated electricity to torture victims. There were also diagrams of how to torture written by Ray, personal journals, and videotapes of victims being assaulted. There were a few women he'd actually let go. However, they were so drugged, they couldn't be sure if their fractured memories were even real. The women that he tortured to death were thrown into a local lake by Ray and one of his many accomplices. Shockingly enough, one of his accomplices was his own daughter, Glenda Ray, who, along with Ray's friend, Dennis Yancey, would help David Parker Ray kidnap women. Although there was evidence that he kidnapped many women, he could never be pinned for the actual murders since none of the bodies were found. He was still convicted for the kidnapping and torture of Cynthia Vigil and 2 other women that came forward. In 2002, he was sentenced to 223 years in prison, but died of a heart attack that same year. The Basement, Maury Travis. Maury Travis was a serial killer that might have never been caught if it wasn't for his lack of knowledge of the internet. Born in Missouri in 1965, Travis was considered a quiet boy and a regular churchgoer. His life changed at college when he became addicted to cocaine and was arrested for armed robbery in 1994. He would be in and out of prison for the remainder of his life. When he was released for a final time in 2001, he started kidnapping women and keeping them in his basement for days, if not weeks at a time, before ultimately killing them. Travis chose prostitutes as his victims because they were least likely to be missed. After a profile piece was written about the death of Teresa Wilson, Travis sent an anonymous letter to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch listing the return address as I Thraldom in New York City with the stamp of an American flag upside down. In the letter, Travis praised the reporter for a well-written article and included a computer-generated map with an X indicating where another body could be found. The letter was immediately given to the police, and after searching, a skeleton was discovered. The police saw the website Expedia.com was printed at the bottom of the map. The St. Louis police, along with the FBI, contacted Expedia to find out if they had any logs of map searches that matched the map Travis gave them. The website was able to provide hundreds of IP addresses. With the help of the telecommunication company WorldCom, they were able to find Maury Travis and arrest him for 2 kidnappings and were able to link him to several murders around the state of Missouri. When the police searched his home, they found a secret torture dungeon in the basement. It was filled with bondage equipment, handcuffs, and a stun gun. Among the pile of evidence was a video titled Your Wedding Day that contained footage of Maury torturing and taunting his victims. He would make them call him master, berate, beat, and sexually assault them. The following audio is very hard to listen to and isn't for the faint of heart. Please go to the next chapter if you don't want to listen.
I can't hear you what you're saying. Say it clear.
You want the master that pleases me to serve you. You are the master that pleases me to serve you.
Stop for
You are the master that pleases me to serve you.
Now you sit your ass down like I said. You sorry?
Yes,
You sorry about what?
everything.
Jumping in the car with a motherfucker you don't know? Huh?
Yes,
You sorry?
yes.
You gonna say something to your kids?
Mama, sorry.
There were several other scenes on the tape, including the strangulation of one victim and other scenes so disturbing and vile that Police Chief Joe Makwa ordered psychological counseling for the officers that watched it. After his arrest, Travis claims to have killed 17 women, but authorities believe it can be as many as 20. Maury Travis would never stand trial for his horrible crimes. On June 22, 2002, Travis hung himself in his cell. The Pit. Gary M Heidnik. When the Philadelphia police received a call from a panicked Josephine Rivera on March 24, 1987, she told them a story so horrifying that it would later go on to inspire the movie Silence of the Lambs. Josephine told them of how she just escaped the dungeon of a man named Gary Heidnik, who kept her and 3 women captive in his basement since the previous November. She told the police of how he sexually assaulted and tortured them, and that he killed 2 women who were held with her. And in one instance, the survivors were forced to eat one of the murdered. When the police went to Heidnik's home, they discovered that every grisly detail was true. Gary M Heidnik was born in 1943 in Cleveland, Ohio, and as a child, he refused to make eye contact with anyone and didn't interact with his peers. Heidnik was also bullied about his oddly shaped head that his brother claimed was the result from falling out of a tree. Despite having an IQ of 130, he would suffer from a lifelong bedwetting problem. Heidnik served in the Army for over a year before being honorably discharged after being diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. He moved from job to job after his discharge, becoming a licensed practical nurse. He was fired from his job as a psychiatric nurse after abusing several mentally disabled patients. Next, he became a self-ordained minister in a tiny church called United Church of the Ministers of God. He would later make a small fortune after several investments. When he married Betty Ditso in 1985, his behavior grew increasingly worse. He would often beat and force himself on his wife, and would also force her to watch him have sex with other women. She divorced him in 1986. As his mental state worsened, he got it into his head that he needed to have as many children as possible. And in order to do that, he would need a harem. In November of 1986, Heidnik would pick up his first victim, Josephine Rivera. After a fight with her boyfriend on a cold winter night, she went off to work the streets and met Gary Heidnik. He convinced her to go to his house, and as soon as she walked inside, he started choking her. He handcuffed her, dragged her down into his dank basement, and tossed her onto a dirty mattress, then shackled her ankles to a pipe. He would regularly sexually assault and beat her. Sometimes, he would put her in a shallow hole that was only deep enough for her to lie in, cover it with a wooden board that had a breathing hole, and place weights on top so she couldn't escape. When she screamed from the hole, he would crank up heavy metal music so that the neighbors couldn't hear her. Over several months, Heidnik lured women into his home, and by the time he was caught, he kidnapped 6 women and killed 2. The first woman he murdered was Sandra Lindsay. She died when Heidnik punished her for moving the board that was covering the pit. Her punishment was being hung from a ceiling beam, and when he thought she was pregnant, he force-fed her. As a result, Sandra ran a high fever and fell unconscious. Heidnik said that she was faking and put her back in the pit. The next morning, Sandra was dead, and he dragged her body up the stairs. The terrified women then heard the sounds of a power saw. For dinner that night, he fed his dogs and the remaining women dog food. Police would later discover that the dog food was actually the remains of Sandra. Heidnik used a food processor to grind up her body. The second murder victim was Deborah Dudley. Heidnik regularly beat her, trying to break her spirit, but she always fought back. To prove that he was serious, he showed Deborah a pot of boiling water containing Sandra's head. Because Heidnik started to trust Josephine, he would include her in Deborah's torture. Josephine would later testify that she was in fear for her life, and so she did what she was told. Deborah was killed after he filled the pit halfway with water, forced Deborah inside with a board on top, and placed a live wire in the hole, electrocuting her. On March 25, 1987, the police smashed the door down to the Philadelphia home and quickly arrested Heidnik. Inside, there were 2 starved women on dirty mattresses, chained to a pipe, while a third was lying in the pit. As the police searched the home, they found a rib cage in the oven and several pounds of human meat in the fridge that included a woman's knee, thighs, and arms. Heidnik was convicted of kidnapping, rape, and 2 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death and was executed on July 6, 1999. Thank you for watching The Twin Files. Do you think you could have escaped any of these dungeons? Let us know in the comments.